Jared Kaplan, as you heard, co-founder, CSO of Anthropic. Anthropic is at the epicenter of this AI revolution that is going on now. And importantly, they have put AI safety front and center, as evidenced by the fact that they are structured as a public benefit corporation and as evidenced by their great work. A little bit on Jared. He is a Hertz Fellow, and he met his co-founder, Dario, through the Hertz Fellowship. Jared got his PhD in physics at Harvard. He went on to become a professor of physics at Johns Hopkins and did fundamental research on AI scaling that has proven pretty pivotal to his current work and to the field. He was also critically involved in GPT-3 at OpenAI. We will spend about 30 minutes or so talking with Jared, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. Because this is a Hertz event, I think there's going to be a lot of questions, right? Probably? Okay, confirmation on that. And I will say, before we dive into this part of the session, it has been super fun preparing for this event. I've gone up to all sorts of people, including some of you in this room, and asked you, what questions would you pose to Jared Kaplan? I've asked Claude what questions he or she would pose to Jared. Got some good ideas there too. And there are a lot of good questions, a lot of thoughts, but actually the favorite question that I got was from one of Jared's own team members. This person asked that I not disclose his name. He does not want the full extent of his fanboying to be known. But he asked me to ask Jared, I wrote this down, you know, Jared, you are our CSO, you surf, and you do jujitsu. How are you so cool? That was the question. Okay, we might not have time to answer that.
I'm not the answer, but yeah.
Okay, so let's start with how you met Dario and got on this journey.
Yeah, so that very much connects back to Hertz. Let's see, I don't know if anyone else has moved between institutions during grad school. Hertz was obviously helpful for that. Still wasn't that fun. So I was in Boston at Harvard, but I moved to Princeton, New Jersey because my advisor moved to the Institute for Advanced Study during grad school. Dario was at Princeton, first doing cosmology and then neuroscience. And there was a Hertz event. And so Dario and I think a few other folks like Philip carpooled together to this Hertz event. And we mostly spent the car ride talking about philanthropy, actually. This organization called GiveWell had just kind of come out. I think there was a New York Times article about it. And Dario and I were both excited about this idea of thoroughly investigating what kinds of charitable causes could do the most good.
And this is a common problem that grad students have, thinking about how to spend their excess capital.
Exactly, we were so wealthy thanks to the Hertz Foundation that we had so much largesse to sort of disperse that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was how we met, and we were friends. We ended up living together in San Francisco around 2010. Mm-hmm. Again, while neither of us was doing AI, Dario got involved in AI then. Yeah, that's how we met. And all thanks to Hertz.
Wow, okay. So you had mentioned initially you were not super keen on AI, or certainly didn't want to spend all of your days in the AI field, but obviously there was a change at some point, and what catalyzed that change?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I had a lot of friends, especially Dario, who were very excited about AI and thought that it was really taking off, and that it would have profound implications for society, and that there were a lot of safety issues to confront. And so we had lots of conversations. I was on sabbatical because I was a professor, and I worked with a lot of other physicists to sort of learn about AI. And yeah, then just kind of like got more and more involved between, 2018 and 2020, and did more and more work on it. I do remember though, I was really, really focused on physics and theoretical physics in school. And when I was an undergrad in 2005, I remember I took this course on AI by Andrew Ng. And And Andrew Ang actually asked, like, oh, would any students be interested in working with me over the summer? There's like all this exciting AI research, and it's like, this doesn't seem very exciting. Like, I'm not going to work on it. I'm just going to do string theory or something. But eventually I changed my mind. And
have you talked to Andrew since then?
Yeah, I should apologize. No, I don't think he remembers me, so.
Okay. So you've started a lab. You've started a company. Both are, entrepreneurial endeavors in their own right. How have these been different? What have been the skills that have been critical to both, or critical to starting Anthropic?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, like, especially in Silicon Valley, people tend to think that academia and starting a company are very different. So I usually just say, no, it's like very similar, similar skills. I think with Anthropic, at least, I have the benefit of having 6 co-founders who are very capable, and so I think that really made it a lot easier. When we started the company, everyone said you're crazy to have 7 co-founders. You're going to hate each other, and everything's going to fall apart, and like who's going to be in charge. But that actually went really well, and it meant that we had a pretty deep bench of leaders to sort of help with management and kind of growing the company and scaling. So I think that was actually a benefit. But yeah, I guess in both cases, it's just really important to have a clear mission and goal. I think maybe one of the reasons why Anthropic has done reasonably well is that, like, the company has a pretty unifying vision. We expect AI to get better very, very quickly. It has, and we think that will provide a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of challenges in terms of the societal impact and safety risks from the technology. And so I think just having a lot of focus and being oriented around a goal and a mission is useful everywhere.
Yeah, so let's talk more about that. So from the start, you've been very focused on safety. And how do you feel this distinguishes Anthropic from, let's say, other models?
Yeah, I mean, I think many people who kind of appreciate the idea that AI will get better a lot have cared about safety, so I don't really want to be ungenerous. I mean, I think that, I guess, with Anthropic, we've really sort of made integrating safety and making AI safe sort of like a core part of what we do. So even from the beginning, when we were just getting started, we immediately started doing interpretability research, and the origin of Claude itself was really motivated by safety, in the sense that in the first 2 years of Anthropic, we weren't really sure that we would ever have any kind of product or any kind of commercial activity. That might sound crazy, but that was how we were thinking about it. And Claude came about because what we really wanted to do was understand the sort of safety implications of very general purpose artificial intelligence. And so we thought, well, one of the most general ways that you can interact in the world is via dialogue. And so we wanted to build a sort of dialogue agent so that we could really explore all of the different things that can happen when you can talk about anything and eventually do more and more. So I think it helped us to sort of, again, to kind of focus. I think that there are a lot of other things that we've done that I think follow from this, like our responsible scaling policy, which I could talk about, interpretability research, but a lot of the other research we do as well. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so responsible scaling, how do you actually implement that?
Yeah, so the idea there is that we think that AI is going to get better and better quickly. And so we want to try, as well as we can, to anticipate what kinds of risks might come about as AI becomes more capable, and then make commitments, or at least outline what mitigations we would expect to need to put in place as AI becomes more capable. But at the same time, we want to make the point that if AI is not powerful enough to pose risks, then maybe we don't have to sort of make major sacrifices. And I think this is important because as a company in a competitive ecosystem, we want others to feel like it's possible to make AI systems that are safe, but also successful and useful. I think like a safe AI that no one uses doesn't help anyone. And so it's sort of like navigating a narrow path where we want to be as pragmatic as possible, but also if there are really clear risks, then we want to hold ourselves accountable to mitigate them.
And you've developed a system analogous to the biosafety level system to actually categorize this. So like for the biologists in the audience, you know, we all use BSL 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, hopefully none of us in this room use BSL 4 facilities, but you've used a similar sort of framework for AI safety.
Yeah. So we developed the system for our responsible scaling policy. We already call these things AI safety levels. And they're really sort of capability levels that unlock new potential sources of risk. And we want to have sort of proportionate information security and deployment mitigation measures for these levels.
And are there ways that you can tell if other organizations have reached ASL 4 or 5?
It's a good question. I think I think that to a large extent the capabilities of systems can be evaluated in the world. Although just understanding how capable AI is itself, it's not totally trivial, because if you're very, very good at connecting AI to the right tools, the right infrastructure, you might be able to get AI systems to do a lot more than if you're just, say, asking a question and checking if the answer is correct. I mean, we do think about things like our responsible scaling policy as not just for us, but as sort of ecosystem and policy-oriented actions. And since we first discussed our responsible scaling policy a couple of years ago, a lot of other AI labs have adopted very similar measures. Like OpenAI has this preparedness framework, Google has a similar measure. So part of our goal there is to get others to want to imitate us.
So I guess that's one way you can interact with other organizations, they imitate you. There's other ways in which you partner with external organizations. So how do you think about that? And obviously many organizations use Claude, but what are the sorts of formal partnerships that you've initiated?
Yeah, I mean, of course we have some large partnerships with like AWS and Google that are commercial. We have a lot of partnerships with many other companies to sort of bring Claude to the world. Then we're also thinking about sort of how we can sort of do more beneficial deployments so that sort of AI can be used for good, both for science, for potentially in the near future, cybersecurity and cyber defense, in the public sector. I think there's sort of a lot of examples.
So last question on Anthropic specifically for now. There's a lot going on within the company. What are you most excited about?
What am I most excited about? I think there's sort of so many things going on. I think one thing I'm excited about is that I think that, so we developed this idea of constitutional AI a couple of years ago, that the idea is that you write down a list of principles that you want your AI system to comply with, and then you can automatically train the system to obey those principles through reinforcement learning and kind of self-evaluation. So it's sort of a way of using AI to supervise AI to make it more helpful, honest, and harmless. I think that those kinds of methods are becoming much more powerful as AI becomes more powerful. I think part of the goal originally with that idea was that you can get kind of like this quadratic improvement, is like AI gets better, it gets better at supervising itself, which makes it more reliable and smarter. And I think that a lot of these techniques, which people sometimes call like scalable oversight, like having oversight that benefits from AI, are starting to like work pretty well, and I think will help us to make systems both more useful and also safer.
Okay. So now we'll talk more broadly about AI at large. So obviously there's a lot of Hertz fellows in the audience who are in fields that are squarely within AI or adjacent to it. So if a Hertz fellow wanted to land a job at Anthropic, what sorts of things do you think they should study during their PhD?
I mean, we're excited to hire Hertz fellows right away. I mean, I don't want to discourage you from finishing your PhD, but I mean, like AI is getting better very quickly, so there's not that much time. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that obviously the obvious thing to do would be to study computer science or machine learning, but I actually think that it's pretty doable for people from many other fields to quickly adapt to AI. Obviously, I was coming from theoretical physics. I got involved in AI, and I think you can talk to people, you can read papers, you can try implementing things. I think it's like very possible to sort of move into the field pretty quickly. It's like not a very well-developed field in a certain sense. The way that we approach AI these days is 5 or 10 years old, and so there isn't that much to know, and so it's very possible. I remember when I was a Hertz Fellow in grad school, I would meet people at events like this and hear how they had like founded a company and then switched fields and then become a professor, and I thought this was amazing, and I had no idea how to do it, and I would ask people how they did it, and I don't know. I don't know that they had any very good advice. I think that for me, the easiest, I was very curious about this. I don't know that I got, but like, I think that for me at least, the best way is to sort of know interesting people, have interesting friends that work in diverse fields, and just talk to them. Like, what should I read? What should I do? And I think that's a great way to get started.
It's something you've done a good deal of.
Yes, yeah, eventually.
So this next question comes from Tom Khalil. Tom is in the audience somewhere. So the question that he posed was about economic complements, and he gave, of course, as the example, hot dogs and hot dog buns being economic complements, complement goods of one another. And already we're seeing examples of complement goods to AI, or AI models, like GPUs, of course. What do you think are some of the less obvious complements that you're seeing to AI?
Interesting. I don't know that I have a great answer. Let's see, less obvious complements. I mean, I think, I don't know what counts as obvious, but I mean, like, I think that one property that AI has is that, which is I think not obvious, kind of surprising, is that I think AI systems are about as good at generating content and ideas, answers to questions, as they are at evaluating them. Whereas I think people are much better at discrimination, at like evaluation, than we are at generation. Like, it's easier to tell whether a book is good than it is to write a great book. And so I think that in terms of, I mean, skills, I think that like that means that there's a lot of leverage to be had from being a very effective like user of or orchestrator of AI systems. I think that's at least like a skill that people can have. In terms of the economy, economic complements, I think probably like entrepreneurs and just sort of like startups are very complementary in the sense that I think that you can do a lot of new things differently and quickly and effectively with AI, and it's going to keep changing very quickly. And so I think being able to sort of act on opportunities really efficiently is, I think, like going to be an advantage versus being sort of very, very established. I think that like even like people often say that data is a moat, that like companies that have a lot of valuable data will have a moat, and I think that might be true in many cases, but I think it's maybe less true than is advertised.
So essentially, AI could catalyze more entrepreneurship or more startup behavior because these subsidiary activities are now easier to do.
Yeah.
Like legal, for instance. Okay, cool. So AGI, obviously there's been a lot of chat about this. When do you think AGI will be reached?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess by AGI, I think people mean AI systems that are broadly as capable as the best people at kind of all intellectual tasks. I don't know, that's like one definition. Another definition that people sometimes talk about is like, when will the economy just be growing at 10% per year? I think that for the first definition, I mean, look, I started working in AI 6 or so years ago. I was very skeptical of AI at the time. I tried to like really have a well-calibrated sense of how likely is it that AI is going to advance? Is it going to change everything? I unfortunately have become sort of less and less skeptical of that. So my guess is that it's sort of roughly 2 to 3 years away that AI will be kind of cognitively as capable as the best people, kind of broadly speaking. But I don't know, that sounds pretty crazy. It certainly sounded even crazier 3 or 4 years ago, but that's sort of my current best guess.
And we touched on this earlier. Given that very short timeline, what are things that an individual could do today to start preparing for this?
I mean, I guess, like I was saying earlier, that I think it's not so challenging. I would expect for people in this room to really understand in detail how AI works. I think it's not like in biology or physics where you have to sort of go to major in an undergrad and then become a grad student, and then you still feel like an idiot, and then you become a postdoc and you feel slightly less like an idiot. And that was sort of what it was like for me in physics, at least. I think that in AI, it's really something where, like, in 3 to 6 months, you can really learn a lot about how these systems work. It's not so complex. And I think it's probably worth learning if you think it's plausible that these systems are going to become that powerful, because I think we need our best and brightest to kind of, I don't know, have their game face on or something for the challenges and the opportunities that the technology might bring.
And at an organizational level, what can companies do to prepare for this?
I don't know. I mean, I spent most of my life as a professor, so I can't claim to. I mean, I think mostly just start trying to integrate. I mean, if you want your business to do well, I think just kind of aggressively be looking for opportunities to integrate the technology and find ways to integrate the technology where it doesn't quite work yet. But if AI systems became a little bit smarter, a little bit more reliable, then it would work, because I think they're going to become smarter quickly. And that means that things that don't quite work now will work soon. And so you kind of have a leg up on perhaps competitors if you're well prepared.
So I think at this point, we'll move to the rapid fire questions to conclude this section, and then we'll open it up to the floor. Okay, so first question, what book are you reading at this moment in time?
I happen to randomly be reading this book called The Golem, that's about the history of science, and it's a bunch of episodes in the history of science. I like it. It sort of resonates with my own worldview, because it sort of paints science as a human endeavor that's kind of contingent and chaotic and kind of could go one way or the other. It's not totally clear which way the evidence points. And I think I feel like I often interact with people, probably not the kind of people in this room, but like in the wider world, who sort of experience science the way textbooks are written or expect that, where it's like, oh, like, and then you like logically deduce that the next step is to do this, and then you perform exactly the right experiment, you get a clean result, and then you deduce this thing. And just like science is very messy, and I like having a lot of examples of how messy science is, because I just think like that's important for people who are reasoning about the wider world based on science to like understand that like we scientists get it wrong a lot and we're confused a lot.
Okay. Next question. Who interviewed you when you applied for the Hertz Fellowship?
The one that I remember, like the final interview, was Tom Weaver. I remember it was like terrifying. It was like a pretty easy question that hinged on like, yes, neutrinos are fermions, you can't make a laser out of them. But there was some other physics question that we talked about for like an hour, and I just thought I was completely wrong about it. He kept asking. I don't even know how that turned out. I didn't think I was gonna get a Hertz Fellowship.
And it turned out okay.
It turned out okay, I guess. Yeah, I lucked out.